Now.
Oh, good afternoon, dear members of ABEI, colleagues, participants of the 15th Irish Symposium of Irish Studies in Brazil. And good evening, everyone who is abroad in Ireland or Argentina, France, anywhere. So we are here today again, or this afternoon, because you were already attending the symposium in the morning, the sessions, the panel sessions, interviews, etc. And today we have another special guest speaker. She was in Bahia. She was with us in Bahia virtually. And thank you for coming and join us this afternoon. In these green times, we proud ourselves to create a different experience online to celebrate Irish studies in Brazil. We in Bahia had the chance to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but we could not celebrate Bloomsday the way we did St. Patrick's. So we celebrate Bloomsday virtually. And now it was the time to celebrate the Symposium of Irish Studies in São Paulo. But we couldn't travel to São Paulo. Nobody could go to São Paulo to be there and celebrate, to touch each other, to embrace each other. But we are here today virtually and celebrate our symposium remotely. So we have Liz Gill today, this great opportunity to encounter our colleagues and to encounter Liz again and activate our knowledge on Irish studies, on Irish history, on Irish literature and films. And we are delighted to announce our special guest, Liz Gill, the director of a well-known Irish film, Goldfish Memory, which was translated into Portuguese as Todas as Cores do Amor. Thank you, Liz, for accepting our invitation and for sharing with us part of your work on film studies. Today, Sanyu Santos and Alessandra Rigonato are interviewing Liz. Sanyu is a doctoral student in the post-graduation program in literature and culture at the Federal University of Bahia. He has a master's degree on film studies at the same university program. He's also graduated in psychology at Salvador University, Unifax. He's currently researching contemporary Irish horror film, or horror cinema. He's my advisee. Alessandra Cristina Rigonato is a member and director of ABEI. She completed her PhD at the University of São Paulo on the comic representation of the Troubles in Northern Irish theatre. She was a visitor lecturer at Université Polytechnique Hauts-de-France in 2018. Currently, she teaches English languages at College Palmares in São Paulo. So now, Liz, good afternoon, good evening. It's hard to say. So let's start our interview. But before starting, you can say a few words.
Well, I'll say thank you so much. I mean, it's really so, it's personally really precious to me to have a connection with Brazil. It's a place that's really, really close to my heart for whatever reason, maybe in my past life, I don't know, but it's, as you know, from the film, the music and the sensibility is really something I love and admire. And it's really also so encouraging in this time when things are so difficult to to reconnect, to celebrate, to remember some fun, which we all need more and more, I suppose. So I'm very grateful personally and professionally as well that the film is even remembered, because it's a small little film some years ago. So it's amazing also to the other members of the team that I can say, hey, they're actually watching in Brazil. So it's very encouraging to everyone. So I appreciate it and thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I would just wish I could have been in Bahia in person. But,
Oh, yes, in the future. I hope in the near future you can come. Oh, but anyway, the good thing is you are here today to share your knowledge, your experience with us, with a different group. When we talked a few weeks ago, I believe you shared your experience on Goldfish memory with students from Bahia. Of course, a few students from different places were online, but today I believe you have a large number of people from different places in the world attending this event.
Amazing.
So,
Hello.
yes.
I wish I could see them, but maybe.
Oh, yes. But I think you're not able to. Only Sanyu, Alessandra, and me, and Mariana. Yes. Anyway, let's start with Sanyu. Okay, Sanyu, it's your hand over to you.
Thank you. Alessandra, do you have a few words before? Or can I start?
I would like just to, in name of the Brazilian Association of Irish Studies, I would like to thank Liz Gill for accepting being our special guest in this afternoon evening, and also Professor Noelia Borges for inviting me, Mariana, and Sandro Santos for introducing us to your work. It was really, I thank you. And I also would like to thank, because I've had just defended my PhD, and I would like to thank my advisor, Professor Munira, who is the founder of BAE and a very special person. So I would like to thank her today. Now, Sandra, you start.
Okay, thank you. Okay, guys, we do have some questions about the film, but I'd like to start about the Emmys, okay? Because Lenny Abrahamson, he got a nomination for Normal People, and I was expecting him to win, no? And what do you think the Irish filmmakers need to do to have more recognition when it comes to the international like cinema,
Well, yes. I mean, it's disappointing for Lenny, but it's also so incredible, as I'm sure he will say, to be nominated. From a small little country, and really such a small, delicate series without the kind of firepower advertising. It's tricky because the Emmys, as much as they obviously reward quality, it's also a bit of a popularity contest and a political campaign. So unfortunately, it's not. When I worked at Miramax years and years ago, one of my jobs was the campaign for the Oscars. And I was really shocked because I was naive and optimistic to discover that it wasn't about merit or really the best film. It was really it was like a political campaign, and you had a strategy and you targeted the voters, and there was all sorts of back in the days, it was kind of Harvey Weinstein who invented the business of getting the videos to the people, and there was a lot of controversy about it. But so it's very rare to be recognized if you're not in the club, in a way.
I got you.
So that's why it really is extraordinary to get nominated, because I think to get nominated is the quality, but about who wins and why, it's a whole, there's other layers. So I mean, it's still pretty great to be nominated for the Oscars and the Emmys, you know, and I'm sure the next thing he does, I'm sure there'll be awards. I was more outraged, not to go on, but I was more annoyed that the actress didn't get a nomination at all, and only the
Yes.
guy, when considering, you know, it was such an equal partnership of performances. Why she wasn't recognized, I thought was kind of heartbreaking for her, maybe.
Indeed, indeed. Good, good. So, I do have a question about the film, but I'd like Alessandra to start with
We
the
start with-
question. Yeah, yeah, you can start with the question about the film, and then I'm gonna follow you.
All right. So Liz, we start from the beginning. In the first scene of Goldfish, we have a very important and interesting, intriguing question. The character Clara, she asks, "What is love?" And this sound of her voice and the way she says, it's very remarking. And so I would like to ask, is Goldfish an attempt to answer the question, what is love?
Yes, indeed.
Good question.
I mean, it's not always that that I suppose that it's that naked that the filmmaker's question is right up front in the words said out loud, but that was certainly the kind of the question that was on my mind and that I was trying to explore. I don't know what, and I do feel like even now, I think it's important for filmmakers to have a question, because obviously if you think you know an answer, then it's kind of just propaganda. Whereas I think it's really useful to figure out a question that interests you and is going to interest you still in 2 or 3 or 5 years time, because it takes so long to make a film. So this was one that was with me, and to a degree is still with me, because I'm not sure I have an answer yet even. But definitely, yeah, that's the kind of essence of what all of the characters, I suppose, are grappling with. I mean, I really wish I'd really love to hear what you guys think. I know it's the interview feels like such a one-way street, because I'd love to, but so I would say, what do you think? But I don't know how much time you're allowed to offer your thoughts.
I don't know, but we feel in the film, we feel that what is love for a certain time, for a certain location, in a lifestyle, what is love in this context? So it was very interesting, because to me at least, and it was intriguing. I'm still intrigued. So it was something that worked very well in your film, I think. I have to say.
Thank you.
So now I think somebody has
Can I interrupt you
Yes,
and answer this question? What I felt when I saw the film? I think I saw 10 times this film.
You
And
deserve
the
a prize.
idea of love was a kind of fragmented feeling. It's just so quick. It does not last longer, you know. This is the message that the film left for me. It's not forever, but it's something that lasts a few moments. I'm not. What do you think, Liz?
I think we'll have to make the sequel and see how it turned out.
In the beginning, in the end, okay, because when the professor gets married, it seems that he's following the traditional style, you know. But you see that nothing lasts forever. Everything changes so quickly from one moment to the other. Relationships are like this.
And I would like just to a curiosity. Would the sequence be the elephant memory?
Good.
That's a very good idea, actually.
Very good.
Well, if we have a goldfish, maybe we can change into an elephant.
That'd be great. And they never let each other forget. You remember what you said 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think that
more dangerous than the goldfish memory.
I guess that Clara answered this question like in the middle of the film. Like when Angie, she doesn't believe Clara loves her. And Clara says, I love you, but on my own way. You know, so I think that's the thing about Goldfish Memory. That's why I love so much the translation, because all colors of love, it really expresses the message of the film, in my opinion, because they're all different kinds of love. Like there's a love that's going to last forever, but there's also a love that's going to last in just a second.
Is it love? Is it love, Sonia?
Well, why not? Well, she's calling love, so why not?
Okay.
I would like to talk about Angie and Tom, because I do feel they were opposites in the film. Because Tom, he was the goldfish, always looking for new adventures, while Angie was struggling to be remembered. And I would like you to talk a bit more about them, the contrast between these two characters.
Wow, that's an interesting analysis. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. I guess if I had to, I suppose it's kind of ironic that, yeah, Tom, who's constantly just high turnover, is the one whose job is the past, you know, and the kind of eternal love poetry and holding on to this kind of thing. Whereas Angie, who's looking for that kind of eternity, is in, you know, news and current affairs, which just goes flicker, flicker. But that, I have to say, that's accidental, because it's only just now that it seems to be. I wonder, they're kind of, they're kind of two sides of the same coin. I mean, something that's kind of maybe funny a little bit is that when the guy with the financier from Screen Ireland was saying, you know, oh, is the film autobiographical? And I said, well, all films are autobiographical. And he immediately assumed that I was talking about the Angie character. But actually, I think Tom was perhaps a little closer to the way I had been, you know, living previously. So it's not always the direct, you know, symbolism that works best. But I don't know if that even comes close to your question, really. Again, you could probably speak more intelligently about it.
And Tom is a professor of fiction.
Yes.
So he fictionalizes his life as well.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Whereas Angie wants the fictitious, the romance, the fantasy, but her job is really, you know, current affairs, news. So-called reality.
This is nice. This is very nice. Okay, Alessandra?
I have a question from the beginning. The beginning was, the opening scenes were very, very interesting. So I was wondering, because when I studied the Irish theater, and I'm not the cinema, but the Irish theater, I noticed a tendency into, when they, for example, Seamus Heaney or Marina Carr, when they worked with Greek tragedies, for example, they transposed the Greek myth, the Greek plot, we can say, into the Irish context, with the Irish accents, with the Irish colors, I would say. And I noticed the soundtrack of Goldfish is interpreted by Irish musicians. So can you say this this technique that there is in the theater can also apply to the cinema, this transformation of the foreign cultures, this encounter with the foreign cultures, and a kind of assimilation or something. I'm still interested in this process, but I noticed that a lot in the Irish theater. But now it called my attention when I was watching your film, Goldfish. So can you say something about the soundtrack? How did you choose it?
Yeah, I suppose I had never really heard Jobim except for kind of background music somewhere, and then there was this wonderful kind of recordings. They compiled everything in one, and it just kind of fell in love with it because it had that beautiful combination of kind of bittersweet, which is what we wanted in the film, where it's like it's just whatever, yeah, off key, you know. But in terms and we were lucky because at the time Damien Rice wasn't yet known or celebrated, and so it was again very scaled down, you know, literally in his bedroom with a guitar, and Lisa Hannigan, who has a, and I also, what I loved so much about a lot of the Brazilian tracks were the duets and the way the voices interplayed, which again felt right for this film. I don't know if in the wider sense, like when you're talking about the theater, whether partially because we're an island, so we're often looking to other places because it can get quite, you know, contained if you just stay in your own little place. You know, and we've had the kind of uninvited interaction with the United Kingdom, and also, you know, it's so much connection to the US because of the immigration and everything. So I suppose for a lot of Irish artists, it's interesting to look into other cultures than just the English speaking world, I suppose, because we're so familiar with them. But I can't say in my case it was a kind of intellectual decision. It was more just an emotional, you know, the way music affects you, I suppose. It's a slightly different thing.
Thank you for feeling.
I'm so grateful to Brazil.
Sanyu?
Yeah, this question is more about genre. And like, I've seen some critics saying that Goldfish Memory is a romantic comedy, and some people dare to say that it's a romantic drama with elements of comedy too. So while you were producing the film, were you thinking about a genre, or you did not really pay attention to that?
I touched on this a little in Bahia, so I apologize if I repeat anything. But I have no. I mean, I love the notion of romantic comedy. Like, I think some of the really, especially like if you look at the Capra films, like a good romantic comedy is really a thing of beauty. I had struggled with genre because I was always trying to write what I was told was the correct way to write a screenplay, which was, you know, one hero on the journey, the obstacles, and the process of change. So I just couldn't manage it psychologically. So it was only when I started thinking in a circular way that it felt like it was making sense to me. I think the genre, it wasn't just that that it kind of suited the question, which again is always a kind of a relationship that is useful, but the also keeping it as a kind of a romantic comedy feels accessible to lots of people. And at the moment in Ireland that we were making it, you know, the idea was to try to be a little bit subversive. So it felt like a film that everyone can come and see. And then, they get to see other kinds of relationships that they mightn't have seen so much before. So it was a little bit of like a sugar coating for some other, you know, I don't want to say medicine because that sounds like, but other ideas perhaps that they mightn't have taken in so easily if it was, you know, if it had the whole gay and lesbian tag on it, then it's like, well, then it becomes really niche. I'm just going to turn on the light. It's looking a little dark in here. I'm sorry. Now it would be super bright.
Oh, better.
Well, I don't know. I should have fixed the lighting before I came into the room, right? Filmmaker and terrible lighting. I'll put on a couple more. Maybe it's better again. Okay. Well, we have lots of light. Anyway, sorry.
Good lightning. So I still have a question also on genre. Thinking about, there is a character in Goldfish. He's Protestant, from the Protestant community, and he's about to marry the girl from the Catholic community. So thinking about when you think about comedy, we think about harmonic endings and happy endings. Of course, the curve of the comedies, something starts and bad, and the solution, in the final solution, there is a wedding, everything's happening, the traditional formula for comedy. And I was thinking about a kind of political reconciliation between the two communities. Do you think comedy would be a good genre to portray that, or what do you think about it?
I think so. We didn't. Sorry, Sonia. Did you want to?
No.
We didn't. I guess, suppose, send the most hopeful message about, like, interreligious reconciliation in the film. But as I'm sure you're familiar, I think it's just such a triumph the way Dairy Girls has managed to achieve this, because when someone said to me beforehand, oh, it's going to be a comedy about, like, dairy and the troubles, like, it just sounds such bad taste. You just think this is going to be awful. And she just found this beautiful, perfect way of accessing that I don't think I've seen otherwise. Almost everything else I've seen that even goes near these issues gets very dark very quickly and is very serious, because it is so serious. So to find a way to have the silly auntie who's annoyed because the checkpoint stops her from getting her nails done or whatever, it's like, it's very beautiful. And in fact, Stuart Graham, the actor who plays the Protestant guy, I don't know if you've seen, but the reason I had seen him was because he did a film. I'd seen a film he was in called As the Beast Sleeps, in which he plays a loyalist paramilitary. It's a really interesting film. Gary Mitchell is the playwright, and he's one of the few, you might be interested, Alessandro, I'm sure you might know him. He's one of the few Protestant playwrights. And it's kind of about after the war, after the Good Friday Agreement, what do these guys do then? Their kind of their power and their status really changes. But so he knows that world. He is actually a Northern Protestant. So I suppose we're not, I guess if you analyze it, we weren't promoting a kind of a happy ending message for that particular relationship. That said, I do know a very good friend who are what they call here still mixed marriage. And of course it happens all the time.
They still call it mixed marriage.
Mixed marriage, which in other places has other meanings, but literally if it's Catholic and Protestant. Although that's changing. But in the North, I think it's still evolving.
And do you think that's increasing now with Brexit? This feeling, I heard they shot journalists some time ago. So
Brexit's not helping, that's for sure. Because what it just adds a little bit of a pressure to a kind of it's still not a perfectly calm situation. And I suppose the reason people, loyalists, let's say, would be getting nervous in the North is because the United Kingdom government is making such a mess of Brexit and COVID and everything else that it's looking, and this whole, it makes more and more likely that actually the 6 counties in the North would be better off united. Like we could be in this crazy situation where we end up, thanks to Brexit, with a united Ireland. It goes so full circle, it actually comes back. So I think loyalists in the North are seeing this and worried that because they've been totally abandoned by Boris Johnson and just completely dumped, that I think the tensions are a little bit high right now. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. Hopefully,
Mhm.
hopefully, you know, do it right.
Okay, Sanyo.
So I kind of consider you a cosmopolitan person.
Okay.
Okay, that's how I see you. And your films kind of reflects that too. And you have worked with Juanita Wilson,
Oh yeah,
who I kind of feel is also a cosmopolitan person. She even has a film that was recorded in the Balkans,
yeah.
right? That's super interesting. But I would like you to talk a bit about the process of working with Juanita on Tomato Red.
Sure. I actually also worked on the film in the Balkans.
Oh,
Um,
really?
I was the first assistant director. That's why when she was doing Tomato Red, I was involved because we had already worked together in Macedonia. Um, uh, so yeah, Tomato Red was an amazing script that again, because I had been a first assistant for her, I had done a schedule for it and I said, whenever you make this movie, please let me be part of it. Whatever, I'll make the tea. I don't care. I just love the script so much. Because Juanita is an incredible writer in the way that I think in both cases, she managed to make a screenplay that was actually, I'm not going to say better than the book, but certainly with Tomato Red, the script was better than the book, I thought. But the process of making it was a little crazy because then first we were supposed to shoot in New Orleans, and I was saying like as a first assistant, like it's crazy to bring um, a first assistant to New Orleans. You want to hire local people, and then the producer, her husband James Flynn, was saying he wasn't going to be able to spend the whole prep and shoot in New Orleans. So would I go over as a producer instead of the assistant director, and we get a local team? We got to New Orleans. We scouted for weeks. It was a very it was really heartbreaking because it was so. I mean, it's outside of the. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a very dark place. It's really like a toxic swamp with serious poverty, like really, really widespread, really bad poverty. And anyway, we eventually the dollar changed, and next thing we found ourselves in beautiful British Columbia in Canada, up in near Kamloops, um, which is a place that is so lovely that we're saying to the location scout, like, please, like, show us a place where you would buy crack. And he's like, well, this is it, and it's this beautiful, nice fences, nice lawns. That's Canada for you. But it was so it was a tricky shoot because obviously again it's very low budget, but that was what really the landscape we had to embrace that the landscape so vast and feeling remote, which is the opposite of what was in the book, which was kind of stir crazy, claustrophobic, Ozarks, kind of hillbilly type of vibe, with no offense. But we had to, I think, flip it so that the infinite expanse of it was what gave you that lack of ability to escape. Almost, you were trapped because it was so far to go anywhere. And now Julia Garner, hey, talking of Emmys, she won the Emmy for Ozark, and she won it last year as well. So Juanita definitely has a good eye for talent.
She does.
And is a very skillful, very specific, really unique filmmaker who I just we'd all like to see her making more films more quickly, because it just takes so much time to write that way and to get it right. She doesn't rush or compromise. She really gets her vision. And I'm so disappointed and heartbroken that film was so under exposed. I think it was really tricky, like we're talking about Emmys and stuff, like with the festivals, it looked like an American film, and they have 10 million independent American films coming at them. So it didn't get to find the audience that I would have really hoped it could, because I think it has a real beauty to it if you embrace it.
I have an extra question actually. I'm researching horror films, and when it comes to horror, the violence is very important.
Mm.
So the horror filmmakers, they need the budget to make the special effects.
Mhm.
And in Ireland, they do not have enough financial support to make a lot of, special effects. So during the Celtic Tiger period, there were not many horror films, but now they are creating more horror films focused on psychological horror.
Mm.
And this is very interesting because it feels that you guys in Ireland, you always try to find creative ways to deal with the lack of financial support. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's I mean yeah, I don't know how much you want me to get into the kind of the industry, but it's I think a huge part of our problem here, especially for writers, is that we don't have really a viable television production volume. And
Mhm.
you know, when we were making Goldfish, remember I was always looking at Denmark and saying, my God, you know, they have the same amount of people, and yet they're producing 20 films a year. And if you produce enough films, if you do 20 and one is good, you can make you can, you know, it's okay. You produce enough for everybody, and it did develop an incredible film culture in Denmark. And why couldn't we do that? Well, because we don't have a TV station that has any kind of vision, imagination, resources, etc. So it's taken Irish filmmakers a long time to really embrace genre. Unfortunately, you know, I think it's maybe it's because of the tradition of conversation or storytelling is so verbal that it's still not a visual culture in that sense. So we're getting there, but what often happens is they just look at an American film and kind of copy that, as opposed to really finding the voice within the genre that can offer then that structure for your imagination, maybe.
Thank you. Next,
I have
Alessandra.
yes, I have a question on you're a producer also of some episodes of Vikings, right? I would like to ask you some questions on this work too. I've seen, for example, a change. I watched the seasons, and I've seen some change in the role of women. For example, I remember Lagertha. She gets more protagonism in. So, how do you see that the protagonism of women in this kind of series for TV, and how do you see, do you think it's going to be a tendency for the future or next works as a producer? Do you think is here to stay, or giving more protagonism to women, to strong figures on TV?
I'd like to think so. I mean, it's a kind of it's a struggle, you know. I mean, the Vikings series was distributed on History Channel in the US, and their audience, we were always being told, well, this is the guy in the string vest. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's like the guy who just wants, you know, the red meat. And so trying to get women with any degree of agency was always a little bit of a struggle. It was always something that Michael Hurst was keen on. And in fact, the historical authenticity of Shield Maidens actually was a big appeal to audiences in the States. And it actually got more female viewers because there were women doing, I mean, my own kind of bugbear, it's tricky now. I'm trying to remember the name of the article that was excellent about what's happening now, is because even in the new series Valhalla, which is the spinoff, which I'm kind of slightly involved with, you know, there's a tendency, well, actually not so much in Valhalla, but there's a tendency to equate to if women get to be violent, that's somehow a sign of equality. And you know, it kind of reduces everybody. Like obviously there are moments, especially in a Viking saga, when violence is completely you know, integral, and it's why you're there, and it's part of the story and all the rest of it. But I see all the time, particularly in American series, like a woman, you know, punches somebody, or not really liberating anybody, to just imitate, you know, this kind of behavior. I do know from my experience on Valhalla that Netflix are serious about diversity, and they're serious about women's roles, not just in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. Like, they are absolutely saying, no, it has to be 50-50 directors. I'm saying, hallelujah, finally, because in my time as a director, it was like, you see 0 female directors, and no one was even noticing that there was no female directors. So it's, and I've been, you know, very involved in the kind of 50-50 by 2020, and here we are, it's 2020, and they're still not 50-50. So it's slow and frustrating, and I think we have a long way to go, but you know, I hope that younger people have also less tolerance for the sloppiness that has happened in the past kind of 15 years. But certainly on Vikings, we have the budget for the special effects.
At least.
They surely do.
Plenty of, you know,
That's very good that you were talking about directors, because I would like to mention Aislinn Walsh. She even, I just watched Daisy Chain. There was that film. It's a very nice horror film by her, and she got the prize for best director for Moldy, right? But still, there are only 2 females that got the IFTA award for best director, Juanita and Aislinn. So what do you think needs to be done to give more space to women in Irish cinema?
I'll try to keep it
That's a tough question, right?
I think, you know, the IFTAs can only reflect the films that are made. And, you know, we're constantly, I'm in Women in Film and TV, and we're constantly banging on the door of Screen Ireland and of the BAI and of the, you know, and Annie Duna, who's the head of the National Film School, is very committed to this. For me, and I think I mentioned it maybe before, the difficulty is even maybe earlier in the pipeline, because when the first year of film school, there are loads of women who want to be directors, and yet somehow by the end of the time, they're fewer and fewer. And then if you look at the career of any successful Irish male director, they've 9 times out of 10 they've gone to film school. They don't have to, but if they have, inevitably the next few years are spent directing commercials. And women don't get hired for commercials. It's still a really laddish, because there's all this schmoozing and all this drinking and all this like blah, blah, blah. And they love for the director to look like this wild, you know, creative, crazy genius. And women can't be wild, creative, crazy geniuses, because at least here. So that period is really crucial for practicing your skills, because commercials are great, like postdoctorate, you know, you have all the toys, you have all the pressure, you have all the elements, and you have to tell a story really, really fast and work with actors and deliver it and listen to all these, you know, notes and everything else. And so Lenny spent years doing commercials, you know, Conor Horgan, Paddy Brannock,
Yeah.
I mean, Kieran Donnelly, like any of the directors
Nick
I can.
Kelly. Nick Kelly too.
Nick Kelly, yeah. They earn a living doing commercials, whereas women have to find the way to make a living doing something else. And sometimes that's being a first assistant director, sometimes it's working in costumes, sometimes they leave altogether, so that it's a real process of attrition. And you get very few, even if now that we have, at least in the Screen Ireland, there's a consciousness about trying to encourage women and trying to get them out there, but still, you know, the imbalance is extreme, and no one is answering for this issue about the commercials, because everyone can put the blame somewhere else.
Fantastic.
Very nice.
And
Alessandro,
I still have one question. I couldn't have the chance yet to watch it, but I found some of your work, Lulu in Berlin from 2013. So I would like you to talk a bit about this project. How did you conceive this project? It was interesting. She's a figure from the silent movies, and I would like you to know more about it. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance yet to watch it, but I'm curious
Well,
about.
no, it's never been made, so you you won't get to
Oh, because they say it was current. Oh,
development. No, it's only a script. Thanks to the wonderful producer Noel Pearson, who gave me my first job as a director. He then hired me to write the script, and it was a passion of his for many years, passion of mine for many years. I mean, literally 20 years. And we were still trying to do it, but then Babylon Berlin came out. I don't know if you've seen the series.
no, I haven't.
Oh, it is amazing. It's brilliant, and it actually does exactly what we were trying to do with Lulu in Berlin, but it's in German in Berlin. Like it's fantastic. So you're not going to compete with that. I mean, I think that the Louise Brooks story is really fascinating. I find it really hard to get good biographical films. When they work, they're perfect, but it's really tricky to get people to. And her life was so sprawling, so across so many different. So it would almost be better as a limited series. But unfortunately, I can't see. I think I just have to admire Babylon Berlin and surrender.
Sanyo, did you have any question?
Yeah, this is my last question actually. I always say that because I think this was a statement that really impressed me when you said, like, I wanted to represent Ireland as a place one could go and have fun. When we made our first interview about Goldfish Memory, and how would you portray Ireland now? Would you be willing to present another project for Spring Ireland?
Yeah, no, there was I suppose it's not even so much about representing Ireland as, it's great. We've had the referendum, we've had all these, the repeal of the eighth. So we've kind of arrived as a European country to a degree. And now, obviously, this pandemic is kind of shifting everything. I guess there's the script that I really wanted to do next, there was a couple. There was one romantic comedy that I wanted to do straight away with Screen Ireland, and then another one which is more to do with, which I may end up doing perhaps as a novel instead, but about an Anglo-Irish family and this kind of world, which actually is it's almost like a genre of Irish theater. The big house with the family while things are kind of collapsing around them, and can they hold on to the past in any way, and can they move into the future in any way, and this kind of battle around property inheritance, because I think it's also universal. Like every country has these families who are kind of struggling to come into the world, and siblings fighting so much over something that is really so tiny in the end if you split it up, all this. So that's kind of where that's the project. If they came to me today and said, let's make a movie, but I've been quite busy with the producing stuff, so I haven't really been
So it's going to be local but also global.
hopefully, yeah. And in one little, we can make it almost in one location very easily. We'll see.
So I think
we have some questions.
Do you still have one question, Sunny?
No, it's because we have some questions on YouTube.
Yes, I know. I'm asking you if you have finished, because I'll be asking Mariana to start with the questions the audience made. Any question, Mariana? Let's see if you have questions for you, Liz. I hope.
I can read one. Can I read one question from Thiago?
Yes.
Thiago Moyano asks you, Liz, the film about Goldfish, the film deals with questions of gender and sexuality, and a lot has changed in Irish society since then. He mentions the 2015 referendum, for example. Would you add or change anything about the storyline today?
Very, very interesting question.
Right.
Yeah, I think things have changed radically, so much so that I wouldn't consider myself enough of an authority to speak to it. I had a lot of friends and younger friends, and the whole world of sexuality is so, talk about colors of love. I mean, it's even more diverse, the rainbow, and more fluid and rich. And so I think you'd have to do a series, a TV series, and explore all of these different realities now. I think we were quite conscious, I at least was quite conscious making the film at the time. It was a snapshot of a certain moment. And I think if the bars were open, but sure, we didn't even have, Tinder, there was, so the world has really changed. And I'd like to see someone now make the equivalent. I'd really enjoy watching it because I'm fascinated at what are people up to now? Because I'm married, I'm at home, I have no idea.
Okay.
And there's a question by Jessica Grant too. Would you like to read, Alessandra?
You can, if you want me. So Jessica asks, I thought some of the scenes are very fragmented. They appear suddenly and are short. Would that be a way of representing the relationships in the form? Like thinking about the form, right?
Oh, yes, please. I would love to think that was all. Yeah, it was nothing to do with the budget. It was completely artistic decision.
It was on purpose.
Completely artistic, amazing.
Yes, yes.
Phenomenal.
And if I have any more questions.
Check.
No questions, Alessandra? Or any other question?
No, I'm checking here. I think we are covered.
I might just say I don't know if you've heard this term. I just want to kind of apologize from Ireland to Brazil because of this tragedy of the Deliveroo messenger. Like everyone here is just so, heartbroken and devastated. It's such an awful thing. And everyone in the country, I think really sends their condolences and grief with you, because it's just, there's such a beautiful Brazilian community here, and all the Brazilian people are just so famous for being lovely and sweet and kind and friendly, so it was particularly
yes,
terribly upsetting. So.
We came to know about the guy on the bike. This is what you meant?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, it was really something that we felt so deep. So may I conclude by thank you, Liz, for this great opportunity you gave to us again.
Really,
and it was a lovely afternoon. And thank you all who attended this conversation, this chat with Liz and Alessandra and Sanyu. Sanyu is really curious about films, Irish films, and particularly your film. And our heartfelt thanks go to you, Liz, now for your generosity in accepting our invitation and being here today. Liz, again, on behalf of Abe, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. We
Truly.
hope to meet you in the future, but here in Brazil.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. For a fourth interview.
No, no virtually anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because like, oh, you're saying.
No, just I'm so grateful to you all for your attention and your kindness and your encouragement. I really appreciate it. It's really precious. Thank you. I'm honored.
Because it's amazing because it's my third time interviewing you, and you always bring something new, something interesting, and like a huge contribution for my work. Thank you very much.
I think you must be a great interviewer, Sanyo. That's
And Sanyo, Sanyo has helped me a lot get in touch with you and other filmmakers. And so Sanyo has given us a great contribution. This access was really good for us, for our studies, for our interaction with Irish culture, Irish studies. So thank you, Liz, for your generosity again.
my pleasure. Anytime, if there's anything you need help with that I can help with, please let me know and we'll.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And tomorrow, do not miss the chance of follow the program. Tomorrow we have interviews and panel sessions, so don't miss them and tune in.